What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Stacks by the Numbers. And I know I'm coming to you later in the day here. It's about a quarter after 3. I was just kind of hanging out and I was watching the markets, talking to people in Discord. Of course, Discord link free to join in the description of every video. But I wanted to do a quick update here on everyone's favorite stock, Supermicro Computer Incorporated, ticker symbol SMCI, listed here on the NASDAQ. This company's been getting some attention lately, making some new offerings up there at, I believe, $8.75 a share. And now we see today the stock is down just tipped below $725 a share, down over 200 points, about 22% here on the day, taking a massive hit, supposedly on the announcement that they will not be preemptively releasing earnings numbers. Now, I appreciate the fact that that may have made a lot of people nervous, and obviously, as you see, a lot of people jump ship. People may have stepped in, shorted the stock. But, you know, it's interesting because I raised this question to you. What other stocks that you know of consistently, preemptively release their earnings? I want you to really think about that because, again, I saw the headlines, people getting scared, they're hitting the sell button, stock taking a 20% hit. Okay, fine, but again, how many other stocks preemptively release earnings? Right? That's my first point. My second point is now we're basically where we were before we really exploded and took that next leg higher to that 4-digit price level. And in my opinion, I speculated that we were going to see 1,300 by the time that SMCI was added to the S&P 500. As you see, we hit 1229 and then we have stopped. However, people forget we went on an absolute rally with this stock. I mean, look at this. There's only a 3-month chart. And you can see back at the beginning of this 3 months, this stock was sub 350. And still today, even after the drop and the sell-off over the last couple of weeks, after joining the S&P, maybe perhaps, quote-unquote, underwhelming a lot of you with its performance, the stock is still up over 100% over the last 90 days. So, first of all, in my opinion, yeah, I mean, it happens, right? It happens. But a couple of things here. First of all, in my opinion, my personal long-term price target, I believe, was over $2,000 a share, if memory serves correct. Maybe even 22 or 2,400, I may have said in a previous video. I don't remember. You guys can go back. You can check. But see, like offering new shares after you just went up on a massive run to raise some capital, or something like today. Oh, we decided not to preemptively release our earnings. Again, like I said, try to list some companies down in the comments section that preemptively release earnings. And then if you can come up with names, did they do it as many times and as consistently as SMCI has over the last several quarters? And the answer is most likely probably no. So the fact that the company overall has been growing very nicely, in my opinion, the fact that they've been consistently preemptively releasing these earnings and they've been positive for several quarters, and now we have an instance where they decided not to preemptively release these numbers, in my opinion, I do not view this as a red flag. And just to let you know now, in my opinion, if we held this stock flat at, let's say, 900, 9.25, where it was before this big drop, let me ask you this question. If they did come in a little light with earnings, which again, in about 11 days, April 30th, this company is reporting earnings. So let me ask you this. If the stock was holding flat 900, and then they came out and they slightly missed earnings, where would we bring the stock? In my opinion, probably exactly where we have it right now. But the fact that we have not seen those numbers yet, in my opinion, I have to say, personally, I think this is a drastic overreaction. And now I know I'm seeing people online, some people are saying, oh, 7:10. Well, we hit 7:15 and then we bounced. Also, at about 10 to 3, I'm going to get you the exact time. At 2:56 here, I said that in my opinion, within the next 30 minutes, I would be buying SMCI. And as you see, we dip down to the bottom of this wedge range again, making our third bottom touch. Actually, technically more than three, but you understand. And now you can see we are potentially beginning to break out of this descending wedge that was formed throughout the day. Mind you, markets did take another dip lower here during this time frame. And we can see SMCI seems to be slowly trying to fight out of this wedge and is actually up over the course of about the last 15 straight minutes. So, in my opinion, I mean, if we really break down the numbers in its current state, could we make the argument that we can maybe see like another 10% drop down to maybe like 650 a share? In my opinion, of course, totally understandable. Because again, we went on a massive run. And I mentioned in previous videos that we went on like this 6-month market rally based on a potential false headline, false information, false catalysts, in my opinion. Supposed cooling inflation and everyone looking forward to these rate cuts. And it turns out both of those did not come to fruition. So this is why I kept saying to be very careful of buying, especially these tech names. Be very careful, in my opinion, of buying not only the stocks when they're at the highs, but also taking positions in these overinflated stocks when the markets are near their highs. So now, as you see, we have a great stock that was probably performing very well for everybody over the last several months, and now we're taking a 22% hit. So, of course, every trader out there is probably asking themselves the same thing right now, and all want to ask me the same thing. Do you think we're going to bounce from this level and go back to 900? Or do you think we're going down to 650 first? Well, the answer is I don't know, obviously, right? Because either scenario could absolutely come to fruition. And that's what makes trading so difficult. But if you're asking me now, would you be buying this dip? Would you piece your way in? If I didn't have a position, would you consider starting a position here? And in my opinion, I would say yes. Because again, even in the short-term trading aspect of this whole situation, in my opinion, especially on the share side, I would be weathering the storm with short-term volatility, and I would be looking for the long-term growth. But that is just me. That is just my opinion. But as you see, we really did go on the up and up. So even just coming down here, you can see, look, it kind of channeled here in this range before popping higher. What's this range? 680, 670. Oh, it channeled, it stopped here around this range. Look at how it flattened out. What's that level? 580. And here's the next level. What's this? Maybe around 5.25. So this is why I laugh when people ask, oh, could it go down? Will it bounce from this level? We have absolutely no idea. And this is why I always say, of course, that investing is much, much easier, in my opinion, than trying to trade the situation. Because we spoke in previous videos about the beefing up and the jumps in guidance and in forecast that this company laid out, looking to bring in north of $14 billion in revenue for the year of 2024. And now we can see the market cap is down here to about $42 billion in change. So now, if we trade stocks supposedly based on future growth and future earnings, well then, the year we're in now, they're expecting north of $14 billion. And with this current market cap, that is about 3 times expected annual revenue. So in my opinion, until the company actually reports these earnings and actually misses these estimates, in my eyes, we have nothing to worry about. And we could potentially make the argument that we're buying a $1,200-$1,300 stock here in the short term, and we're able to buy it down here at about a 40% discount today in the low 700s. But again, I understand you could make the argument, well, some fundamentals are slightly down. They're not as good or as high as they were a couple of quarters back. I can appreciate all of that. However, we understand the fact that this company is in the tech sector. It's in a growing space, connected to that AI, consistently keeps saying it has a lot of increased demand, and again, laid out its forecast, its guidance, moving forward, and it seemed pretty beefy. I also have to remind you that, yes, we could make the argument that the debt has increased last quarter over quarter here, and is now up to 384 million. However, we're talking about a company now with a current market cap still over $40 billion, and they have debt of 384 million. Now, we've seen companies very similar to this. And if we're looking at, a $40 billion stock, you'll notice a lot of those companies have 3, 7, 11 billion in debt. SMCI has a market cap still north of 42 billion, and the debt is 384 million. So this is why I said in previous videos and updates speaking about SMCI, in my opinion, this company is much, much more fundamentally sound than a lot of people may give them credit for. Which is why I said that, in my opinion, 1,300 after the S&P listing really should have been no problem. But they wanted to top the stock out. I'll touch over 1,200. That is fine. We have assets outweighing liabilities. But also the forecast here, as we see, 4 billion, a touch below 5 billion, a touch below 5 billion, 5.5 billion. Switching over here annually, again, 2024, over 14.5 billion. Going into 25, almost 21 billion. Going into 26, north of 23 billion. So, I'm sure we can probably agree that if these numbers come to fruition, we may turn around in 12, 24 months, and we may be looking at a $2,000+ stock. And if that is the case, everyone will remember this day. And also, not to kind of jump down your throat and butt heads with you, but chances are, if you're one of the people online now clamoring for a pullback to 600, 500, we're going to retest 350 where we originally started. Remember, first of all, in my opinion, your opinion like that, obviously, you're entitled to your own opinion, but in my opinion, I would not let any of that influence my personal analysis on this situation. Because again, right now in the moment, until they miss earnings, they haven't missed earnings. So just the fact that they didn't, again, preemptively release them, in my opinion, isn't that much of a red flag. And definitely really shouldn't warrant a 20+% drop because of that. But my main point is, chances are, if you are looking for a pullback to 500, 300, then I can probably go out on a limb and probably guess that you weren't involved in the stock when it ran from 350 to 1,200. So now that it's pulling back, you are looking for blood. And you are looking for a full retracement so that you yourself can now get involved into the situation. And believe me, I appreciate where you're coming from. I appreciate your frustration. Obviously, on this channel, we spoke about SMCI at multiple points. I brought it to the attention of my viewers around the 300s. And I said, in my opinion, this is the type of stock you guys should be owning, you should be looking for. After this run up here, I think it was maybe around 550. I did another update. I said, in my opinion, 1,000 should be no problem. People also were speculating and asking if we could potentially get added to the S&P. I said, in my opinion, it is possible. It then happened, and the stock ran up to 12.29. So, again, we could make the argument, yeah, we could pull back, right? Especially if we pull up something like stock charts. You can see the RSI on the daily took a big hit. Now we're down to 33, right? So we may potentially sell off again another day or so and maybe hit that 700 psychological breakpoint. And then we can bounce because the daily RSI will be sub 30 potentially. But you can see that our next support level is 657.34, which would be about a 10% drop from here. But if we had the crystal ball and we saw that we would potentially drop down to this support level and then bounce and rally back up to 1200, and the company is going to consistently beat earnings and up its guidance and forecast over the next several quarters, then chances are you would be buying this dip. So again, in the immediate short term, of course, it's hard to call, which is what makes trading so hard, so difficult. But look at the MACD, the way it completely fell off a cliff. It's now below where it was before we started this rally, which in my opinion may signal a buying opportunity. Also, at the same time, even if we pull all the way back here to 466 and retest this 200-day moving average, if I liked it at 1,000, if I liked it still at 1,200, I'm going to like it even more at 7.25, and I'm going to be salivating down here at sub 500, in my opinion. So this is why I keep saying, follow the money, look at the earnings, right? Look at what the company is forecasting, if they increase their guidance, what we're expecting potentially over the next couple of quarters, the next couple of years. And let me tell you something right now. In my opinion, I will, until I see on earnings day that the company missed by a mile, I will personally stand by my analysis. Again, it's just my opinion, but I will stand by my analysis saying that, in my opinion, this is a $2,000 plus stock. And again, people swept it under the rug when I brought it up at 350. Then you may have felt you missed the run at 550 when I did an update and said that I felt it could go to 1,000. Then it went to 1,200. So this is what I mean. All these people who are now trying to bring up these negatives, in my opinion, are probably the very salty people who missed out on, a 300-400% run, and now they're looking to bring the stock all the way back down to where it was, completely ignoring all the positive catalysts that came out along the way, and they may feel that the move is justified. And listen, it very well might be. Like I said, we might end up pulling back to the 400s, maybe even back to that 350 level. Who knows? Who knows? However, in my opinion, that does not alter my analysis on the situation at all. If we pull up the weekly here on stock charts, we can see the RSI obviously was raging, got well over 90 at one point. Now on the weekly, the RSI is still sitting here at 54, which is why I'm saying this may not be the bottom of the bottom. And if we do pull back to that support level of whatever it was, 660, 657 or whatever, in my opinion, I would understand that. But I would also view it as a potential buying opportunity. Looking at the next support level here on the weekly, we can see it's about 5.25. So that's going to be a pretty big haircut from here if the stock does drop down to that level. However, I always mention to you that slow, steady climbers, in my opinion, win the race. And we can see that the moving averages have been helping out this stock significantly. First of all, again, even after this big drop, if we look at the weekly, the stock has still stayed above this 50-day moving average for almost 2 years straight now at this point. I couldn't even tell you the last time it got near the 200-day. It's not even on the screen. But look at the growth that we're seeing over time in the moving averages I'm referring to. So we come back down here, September of 22, the moving average was about $32 on the 200-day. Now the 200-day moving average is almost $142. We come back here, same point we'll say. September 22, 50-day moving average, $46. 50-day moving average, $421. So now these new higher moving averages, in my opinion, will now potentially be future support levels for the stock to bounce off of. So again, did we have a massive run up? Are we kind of valuing the situation based on future numbers? Yes and yes, which is why, in my opinion, we could potentially pull back as deep as the 5s and the 400s. However, in my opinion, again, I would be buying these dips, but that is just me personally. We can see we had a big curl here on the MACD, and now we are right at it. And it seems as though, again, we were potentially starting to break out of this wedge. Now the stock has since pulled back, sitting here sub 719 currently. But for all we know, the company may come out and announce some positive news right after the market closed. So, who knows? But in my opinion, I know you're looking for potentially specific directions here, which kind of technically, in my opinion, I'm not really supposed to give you. But also at the same time, I felt personally this run up above 1,000 was 110% justified. I think it was long overdue. I mentioned the multi-year consolidation that I was watching on this stock back in the day. And then when everyone loses faith and everyone thinks it's a stick in the mud, all of a sudden the stock goes from the mid-teens to over $1,000 a share here over the next coming years. So this is why I would stand by my analysis and remember the positives and the future growth that this company is laying out for us. But again, it's just my opinion. I'm sure there'll be people in the comments saying, well, it just broke this point, that's why I'm looking for 700. Oh, it just broke this level, next stop is going to be, 620 or whatever. Understandable. But again, you can't jump down my throat because I always preach, in my opinion, that you should be piecing your way into these situations. So on the run-up, if you decided to go all in at 1,100 and change, and now you're down 35%, in my opinion, that is on you. That is not on anyone else. But also, if you're able to stomach this volatility and you really don't give a crap, but you're just looking for an update, yeah, I can respect that too. But again, we know what goes up must come down. We go on these big runs. The markets were near highs, so a sell-off may be inevitably coming, right? So that's why even a drop like today, in my opinion, it really shouldn't shock you. And regardless of what it was, unless, of course, they, really announced some negative stuff. But you and I both know, what if an analyst came out now and said, all right, random fire truck going by. What if an analyst came out and said, oh, I think this is all hype. I think this is an overreaction. My personal price target's 500 a share. The stock very well could have taken this same hit on a catalyst like that. You understand what I'm saying? So this is why I preach, in my opinion, that you have to be able to stomach the short-term volatility for the longer-term growth. But looking here, we can see again, we were fighting to stay above the 50-day and we technically just broke below it. However, it took a new stock offering at 875 and supposedly this quote-unquote negative news announcement today to bring the stock below the 50-day. And that's technically really the biggest drop below it, I'd say, since the end of October here, really early November, before it started to take off. So, yes, again, it could very well continue to sell off. However, at the same time, if someone now comes in and says they took a position in the stock, or if someone comes out and upgrades their price target now, or if an analyst just blatantly comes out and says, these people are crazy, there's an overreaction, I still think it's worth $1,400 a share. Then, if we immediately rebound it back up to like 850, 900, in my opinion, that would make sense also. So unfortunately, it is a difficult situation to currently gauge. However, looking at something like the weekly, we can see the mid-Bollinger Band about 666. So again, we could potentially pull back. We were looking at, yeah, again, even if we pull back to this previous consolidation level here, you can see we're talking about 650. So that's why, in my opinion, a pullback 650, 660, in my opinion, could very well happen. We check the pivot points again. This was 5.25. On the daily, 657, right? So, again, see, the problem is, the only reason why people get emotional, in my opinion, is probably because you were trying to trade the stock, or you were maybe on the wrong side of the fence. If you are a longer-term investor here, in my opinion, this is not an issue. But again, that is just me. But I have been pretty correct with my price targets in the shorter term with SMCI when we first started looking at it. The stock now just hit the low of the day, 713 and change. However, in my opinion, if the company is forecasting the growth that they laid out to us, and if they are able to deliver even closely and slightly coming in below these estimates, then in my opinion, we may turn around to a day like today and laugh. Oh, the stock's at 1,800, the stock's at 2,100. Remember when they brought it down over 20% on that earnings nonsense, blah, blah, blah. So like I said, in my opinion, could you really chalk it up as a big negative? No. And until they post these earnings on the 30th, and until they miss these numbers, in my opinion, you are currently buying short-term a $1,000 plus stock now at about a 30% discount. And again, we could see a drop back to 500 before we bounce and get back to 800. Who knows, right? Who knows? But in my opinion, I will stand by my analysis and I will keep on record that I personally feel, given the next couple of years, this will easily become a $2,000+ stock. And I'm going to end it there because we're basically beating a dead horse here. So, once again, this is Stocks by the Numbers. I want to thank you guys for stopping by. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, drop it down in the comments section. I'm usually very quick to reply. Thumbs up algorithm helps me get more eyes on the channel. And, of course, subscribe to the channel. That is our handshake agreement. That is how you help me help you. But more importantly, moving forward, like I always say, I understand that markets are rocky and volatile and uncertain. So I want to wish all of you success. Hope everyone makes a couple of dollars. Thanks for stopping by. Have a great weekend.